Day, hot summer day, we can reflect on what life is all about. And don't expect me to tell you what it's all about. This past couple of weeks, I think we've been seeing, such rapid changes in the international political alignments and kind of monolithic institutions suddenly crumbling and falling apart from internal problems. Amazing things that have been happening in the Soviet Union or the Soviet disunion. And we sometimes, the perceptions we have of something so seemingly so permanent or so strong and invincible as Soviet communism seemed to be, at least from my perspective, it always had this kind of aura of being very powerful and invincible, something that's on its way to kind of take over the world. Being an American, of course, Americans have set themselves up deliberately to try to stop the spread of the Soviet communism in any form, any hint of it or innuendo. If the British at any moment said, well, it's not all bad, the Americans would go into a panic, saying, no, it has to be all bad. But these are times of rapid change and frightening predictions. And it's also a time where we really have to contemplate what is the meaning and purpose of life, what is it all about. These are the questions that really bring us towards, say, fulfilling our human potential. Because even though these questions might seem unanswerable in many ways, we can't, no trite or definitions or easy answers to these questions. We don't really want to be told the answer. What we want to do is exercise the mind to try to contemplate, to bring into consciousness, awareness of our experience of life, our sensitivity, our feeling, our ability to create and to imagine and to realize. I think over this past several years here at Amaravati, I've been so very much increasingly aware of the kind of wonder of being human. Where before so much of my experience as a monk has been very much a kind of examination, investigation of the suffering of our existence. With the Buddha's teaching of the Four Noble Truths, one has been encouraged to investigate the experience of suffering quite continuously, and to really get to understand and know and examine your own feeling of fear or desire or something wrong or discontentment or physical sickness, pain, discomfort, or disappointments, disillusionments, in whatever form of suffering or misery or despair one might experience them, that examination goes on. But as one becomes more aware and understanding through the investigation of suffering, then the mind tends to open up to life much more. Because rather than just living a life trying to protect yourself against the unknown, unpredictable, mysterious influences and powers that be in this universe, one becomes much more trusting, confident in the benevolent forces and the overall goodness and the aspiration and the intelligence of the human heart. Venerable Amaro just came back from America, where he brought with him some of the latest kind of New Age journals and magazines with all their advertisements for aura massaging and all kinds of getting to know your wounded inner child type therapies. And it gets a bit sickening if you read too much of those magazines. You end up wanting to kind of throw up. But one thing that did come across, the general assumptions, is the corruptibility and the attractiveness of, say, appealing to people's kind of lower chakras, or their vanity, or their desire for wealth or happiness or sensual pleasures, kind of efforts to justify hedonism or sensual pleasure and align it with some kind of spiritual path, make it sound quite proper and quite with the times to think that you can have everything painlessly plus enlightenment, not have to give up anything whatsoever, and follow any of your impulses, and that will take you to this state of eternal happiness, where the butterflies flutter by and the birds speak to you continuously of unconditioned love. That sounds almost poetic, I guess. But what I do see from my experience as a monk, which is a quite unique experience, admittedly, there are not too many monks or nuns in the world, compared to the 5.3 billion population. There's probably not even, maybe 500,000 at the most, and most of them are not here in England. And here in England, they're increasing, but very gradually increasing. But the holy life itself, one becomes really aware of unselfish aspiration, and the ability of human conscious experience to delight in such things as the beauty and truth and goodness of being. There is a natural purity, a pure intelligence. These are very much what we contact, what we connect to through our meditation. That is a part of our human experience of life. It's not something you cultivate, you kind of get hold of through belief or grasping at things. It's through the relinquishment of the negative states and the deluded tendencies of the mind, or the selfish tendencies of the mind. As those are seen and recognized for what they are, then there is a letting go and abandoning of those states, and what remains through that letting go and abandonment of those delusions is a connection to, or a realization of, purity and goodness. That is what we truly love as human beings. When we contact that, then there's a natural expression of love that one realizes. There's also been many questions and speculations about the nature of the universe. Is it basically evil? Are the evil forces the more powerful ones? Or is there some overlying or underlying or kind of benevolent forces? These are the kind of questions sometimes we ask ourselves. Is the force of evil stronger than the force of goodness? Is the universe morally indifferent? It just doesn't matter whether you have morals or not. It is, the devils have as much right to act and do as the angels. Is it a morally indifferent universe, or is it a benevolent one, a good one, a perfect one, or is it a cosmic accident? Is it just cold-blooded? Now we each one can reflect on our own experience, because it's this kind of human body that we have, and mind, our emotions, our feelings, our intelligence, this conscious experience that we must investigate, because the rest we can only speculate about. And to speculate about the total universe, the macrocosmic whole, that one can only kind of perceive as through abstraction in its totality, but we can begin to just recognize and realize the very forces and tendencies, abilities, talents, inclinations of our own experience of life as an individual human being. And so what I'm relating is from my own experience of life, which I assume is not an isolated experience. I assume that I have a common experience with all the rest of you, and that, say, my fellow monks and nuns also have this. Even though there are personality differences and varying degrees of conditions, positive and negative, that are different, basically there is the common aspiration, a love of the good. Now when we use the word love, this word also needs to be really clarified. And this word I've very much tried to clarify in my own mind, because it is a word that is used for so many different possibilities and experiences. It's a word that means a lot to an English-speaking person. But it's used over and over again. It can be just a kind of hackneyed phrase, a meaningless sentiment, or it can mean something very profound and point to some ultimate reality. And so reflection from my mind is that as the mind empties the negative, as the kind of negative habits, the thoughts, the worries, the anxieties, the critical tendencies or the obsession with what's wrong or what's bad or what the flaws and weaknesses, as that kind of habitual tendency falls away, and one is no longer just caught into these negative states, as the critical faculty no longer dominate conscious experience, then what remains is a sense of underlying unity, or it's a non-critical awareness. The critical faculty can operate from that, but it's not dominating our conscious experience anymore. And I would call that the experience of love, because it's a unity. It's a united kind of conscious experience. It's not divisive. It's not picking and choosing or preferring one thing over another. It's what holds everything together. Kind of cohesion, a powerful, cohesive, dynamic feeling. that isn't related to any particular thing. One doesn't identify as a personal quality, because it is a realization when all the kind of personal qualities have been relinquished. And of course that's where faith arises, where you experience faith and trust, and where fear, anxiety, and worry have vanished or disappeared. And that is a bright state of mind. It's bright, it's clear, there is intelligence, it's peaceful and calm, and the differences in personality and in whatever qualities that one might be experiencing in that moment no longer are reacted to through, say, preference or discrimination or aversion. So it's like when we recognize that the metta practice or loving kindness is a skillful means towards realizing unity or oneness or non-discrimination, non-discriminative awareness, consciousness that we can realize in a moment of mindfulness. Then the discriminative faculty is one that divides and separates, isn't it? That's the personality, me and you. I am Sumedho Bhikkhu, I am a Buddhist monk, you are the lay people. I am a bhikkhu and she is a nun. And I'm an American and you're British. And all the discriminations take place about our own preferences, inclinations, tendencies, habits arise. We feel affinities, we feel attracted to certain people, we feel averse to others. We have various opinions, cultural attitudes, views, and that we tend to believe in and that influence our conscious experience. So that's the discriminative faculty, and that has been highly developed in through Western education, isn't it? We admire rationality and reason and logic. These functions of mind, marvelous functions indeed, not to deny them and put them down as wrong or bad in themselves, but when they become our attachment, when we identify with being reasonable and rational and with a particular group or a particular condition, whether it be a body or a nationality or class, race, religion, sect, type, or astrological sign, or whatever we identify with, then that is the discriminative function operating, which always creates the illusion of separateness, disunity. And we can see in the Soviet Union there was the illusion of unity was there before, when the old kind of regime was in, that had absolute power to hold it together. It wasn't held together through love, though, was it? It wasn't metta practice that the Soviet Union was particularly skilled at developing, but fear. And it developed the ability to terrorize and frighten everyone into obedience, so that people were didn't dare object or complain about things or suggest any other way of operating, because the retribution was usually sent off to some terrible kind of prison or camp or death itself. So that one can maybe control masses of people through dominating them with fear, terrorizing them. You can certainly control through fear and terror and tyranny. But then we also see that the result of that is that when it starts weakening, then it just kind of falls apart. And then all the differences start coming up again, bubbling up. All the unresolved ethnic problems, anti-Semitism and ethnic preferences and grudges from the past, and all this become the important issues. And so we see the breakup of the Soviet Union now because the fear and terror is no longer dominating or controlling the massive population. So people now can kind of express what they think, but a lot of what they think is still bound up with the old unresolved fears and desires of their class, their ethnic background, their religion, all the things that have not been resolved yet, individually or as groups, as nations, or as a country in itself. Now I notice in meditation that one can say that proper meditation or right meditation allows you to resolve issues and karmic tendencies on an individual level. For example, in monastic life, you are always confronted with your character and your habit, tendencies, the way you tend to react to things, which is I found a lot of immaturity, fear, unresolved fears, resentments, bitternesses and blame and feelings of inadequacy and inability and all that these kind of negative states in monastic life I've allowed to enter my consciousness rather than just trying to keep them out of conscious experience. I've actually invited them in and willing to accept them as a conscious experience. In that way you can resolve them, you can absolve them. They arise and then they cease. Their karmic force ends on that allowing things to cease according to their nature. Then that is no longer something that operates in a habitual way. These habitual tendencies then to worry or to take things in a highly personal way, or to any kind of prejudices you might have or preferences or opinions become conscious experience, accepted in consciousness with that intention to do so, and then to let them go, to allow them to go, then cessation. And that resolves them, that ends their karmic force, their power to delude and to dominate experience, or to cause you to react impulsively or unsuitably in any time or place. More and more you feel a sense of calm and trust and ability to take life as it comes, rather than to try to control, manipulate our lives out of fear and desire and dread, and try to keep all the kind of tyrants and titans and demons and irritating little flies, gnats and insects and midges and mosquitoes out of your mind by avoiding or rejecting anything. One's willing to allow even the most irritating, silly or trivial conditions to attain consciousness in order to let them go. Well, I see that on a personal level as possible. As an individual human being, that is what we're actually doing through proper meditation. We're not just, even though some of you might think of meditation as sitting, in a quiet place and not paying it, and kind of attaining a state of bliss or peace in which you're not having to look at anything unpleasant. That's not what actually happens. If you've ever been on a meditation retreat the first time, suddenly you're sitting there wanting to go into some blissful, happy state, only to find out all the kind of irritating things that you've rejected and refused to look at suddenly start kind of pounding on the doors of your consciousness. It can be quite upsetting. One thinks of meditation as peaceful and blissful, and then instead it's worse than ordinary life. At least at home you can turn on the television when it starts going. Meditation retreat, we say you can't do that. But it's through that willingness to allow this to happen, to allow your conscious experience to be a kind of door or skillful means to experience the flow of life as is, so that all rejected subconscious conditioning that motivates or compels you or dominates your life can be resolved, so that what's left then is the purity of the mind. And the human heart, when it is purified in that way, then is a heart that is truly beautiful, loves the good, delights in truth and beauty and goodness, loves the Dhamma in Buddhist terms. We love the Dhamma, or the truth of the way it is. We find joy in being able to practice, to live, to keep sila, to be a moral being, to create beautiful thoughts in one's mind, to be able to send forth good thoughts in your mind towards other beings, to be able to perceive totality and wholeness, oneness, to be able to forgive, to forget offenses done to you, to be able to not dwell on what's wrong and what's unfair as an obsession, but being able to trust in what is true and real. And that the meaning of our life then, the experience of our life is then one based on real faith. And that faith isn't belief in something you don't know. It's a faith from actually understanding things as they are. Sometimes I think in Western, I mean, it's not only with Christianity, but Buddhism is oftentimes interpreted in the Western mind. There's so much emphasis on evil, on the powers of evil, on the sinning problems of humanity. And maybe humanity is, maybe we are as a creation in nature, the human state, maybe we are still very primitive beings. I mean, we tend to think, don't we, that we're quite civilized and advanced. But yet our behavior doesn't convey that generally, does it? The Gulf War was certainly an example of barbarism on both sides. You just strike back full force to dominate and to conquer someone else. And so that's a kind of tribal mentality, a kind of barbaric tendency of our human state. And to seek revenge, to want to conquer and dominate somebody else, and to destroy them, annihilate them, hurt them, and to just the joy or the love of violence. And with men especially, isn't there? There's the kind of, say, more primitive male tendencies love violence. The kind of the sports, the football matches, and the wars, and you can see it in little boys. Boys at a certain age most of them love some kind of violent behavior. tendency towards this kind of primitive, atavistic male brutality. And so it's easy sometimes to be pulled into that kind of conscious experience of violent brutality, because it's a part of our karma. And don't think that any of us are so refined or so advanced that we wouldn't find it exciting. In fact, after 25 years as a monk, I still find violence exciting. And that's not because I failed at meditation, it's because that's the way it is. If on the conditioned level, on the level of conditioning and karma, isn't it, that there's certain kind of, like sexual images and violent actions are exciting to the mind. And that's the way it's not that I'm going to follow that or that I'm going to identify with it. It's to recognize that those kind of energies or vibrations are that way. They excite. And excitement is an absorbing vibration, isn't it? When you're excited, you're completely absorbed into something. If you're bored, then it means that you're restless. It's a very unpleasant, dreary state to be bored and just caught up in restless activity. But the more violent something is, it's kind of mesmerizes your consciousness. It holds you, absorbs your attention. So I hear like these new films, read these about these these Terminator 2 and these various films that come out now. They kind of mega films, great hits where they make millions. Have all this violence in them because violence is mesmerizing, and you can absorb it appeals to. I suppose women also get mesmerized by it. Not being a woman, I don't know, but I know men can. But in spite of all that, there is something in me that doesn't want to follow that, doesn't seek those situations out. Now, like being a Buddhist monk was a quite deliberate and intention to put myself in a situation where those opportunities were minimal, where say violent action was a minimal possibility, or sexual pleasures were forbidden in life of celibacy. So it was a deliberate intention to choose a particular lifestyle that to many looks like the ultimate in boredom. Sitting around in a monastery and living under all kind of complicated rules of discipline and sitting, meditating, and even chanting, even traditional forms, say, are not exciting in themselves. The whole Buddhist kind of ambience is not an exciting one, isn't it? We tend to favor Buddhism, we're inclined to it because we connect it with peacefulness or serenity or calm. And the Buddhist monk is a kind of living example of that. Well, for example, for last month when that massacre in the Thai temple in Arizona, when somebody went in and murdered 7 Buddhist monks and a nun and several laymen in the Thai temple in Phoenix, Arizona. There's something appalling about that. It's more appalling than say if it would just been 7 ordinary blokes. Because one connects Buddhist monks with non-violence, with pacifism, and suddenly all 7 of them died this violent death, being murdered, shot through the head, each one, and without any resistance. They didn't put up any resistance. And there's something really saddening and shocking about that. When somebody who's nonviolent, or like a child, or when we talk about old women, old men, people that represent that form of life which cannot retaliate or will not retaliate or is innocent, is treated with brutality and with violence. It brings up this sense of shock and pathos that human beings could actually do that to someone that is not particularly fighting back or creating the conditions for such violent behavior. One thing I've seen also is that these tendencies, habit tendencies, one can actually observe them, witness them, and in that ability to observe and witness, one sees them as they are, and so one can actually see, say, maybe excitement in the mind, and reflect on that exciting vibration, and not follow it, not identify with it, either through becoming excited with it or trying to get rid of it, just by merely observing it, accepting it, and allowing it to cease. That which can observe, that which can know things as they are, is not violent, is not self. It's where it's what unites us, where we are one. It's that purity, pure intelligence. It's the loving, underlying loving quality that unites us. Just look at pictures, say religious pictures. For example, I have an icon in my little room of the Virgin Mary with a child, Christian icon. Russian. Now that to me is a very beautiful picture because it does convey in a very kind of archetype that one of our lovely qualities, doesn't it, of caring and loving, nurturing an innocent child. And if you start reflecting on that in yourself, that in you which cares about someone else, even if it's just one other person, when you take out the personal kind of neurotic needs and hang-ups that you might have about your relationships with others, when that side has been kind of relinquished, what remains is a very beautiful, loving quality that we might feel maybe towards even a pet or a friend or child or husband, wife, or whoever. We think of people who spend their lives intentionally trying to help others. And there is a kind of cynical tendency also to put it down as neurotic need, that we can't face our own problems, so we go out to solve other people's. That's a kind of cynical explanation of the whole thing, and that might be part of it. That we might also be involved in a kind of emotional need to help others because we can't really look at our own problems. But also, I wouldn't put it all under that label. That doesn't seem to me right, to put it all just as some kind of neurotic, selfish need in itself, because there's also that very basic goodness and loving quality in the human heart that finds great joy and meaning in serving and helping others. For example, just the state of motherhood, say just the mammalian species itself, mammal animals. When we look at, say, a female dog nurturing puppies, There's something basically very good about that, isn't there? When we contemplate that. I've seen this in Thailand, where Thai people, they don't have dog catchers in Thailand, you see. So what they do is when they have too many dogs around, they take them and dump them in Buddhist monasteries. So, because Thai people don't like to kill these dogs or anything, so they think, well, the monks will take care of them. So one monastery I stayed in was in central Thailand, and it was in a very wealthy area of Thailand, actually, and they had about 30, 40 dogs living in this monastery. And I'm telling you, that was a real trial, because during the mating season, it was horrendous what went on there. You wouldn't believe, and I won't describe it. But one thing I did notice was that some of these female dogs would sacrifice everything for their puppies. You know, just that they would oftentimes weren't getting enough to eat. They were kind of emaciated, worn out, frazzled, mangy, unwanted, unloved creatures in themselves, and yet their whole meaning and purpose of life was to nurture their puppies. Well, there's something basically very good about that to me. And when I saw that, one couldn't help but respect that and look at it as a good thing. That in itself, that putting that in the, say, the female gender, that which will fight for the young to take care and nurture them. I say that is one of the examples of the basic underlying goodness in our human state. Say with men, isn't it? When the masculine, because we can't nurture, we have no nurturing abilities, but our tendencies to protect, isn't it? The nobility of men that want to protect the innocent. This can be exploited into being a kind of, a macho warrior figure that tries to, get a lot of attention for himself. It can go into vanity and into absurdity, admittedly. But basically, it is a very beautiful quality that I think most men have in some form or another, in some degree or another. A natural, kind of almost instinctual inclination to protect children or women or mother, father, whatever, country. Another reason for assuming the basic goodness and benevolence of our human state and in this universe that we live in is the fact that religion itself is always the kind of vehicle that admires and tries to encourage, say, moral commitment, to refrain from doing harmful things to each other or to ourselves, that loves images such as divinity, the angels, that admires honesty and beauty itself and truth. When I've read people like Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius, these Roman philosophers, there's something so basically good about them in their their love of ethics and of fairness and goodness and justice and mercy. And yet we can equate Roman civilization with the Colosseum and the kind of madness that went on in burning Christians and feeding Christians to lions and kind of orgiastic rites, drunken behavior, Dionysian orgies, in the Roman, I mean, those are the sensational aspects of any civilization. But also we must recognize the wisdom of such philosophers as Plato in Greece and the kind of Stoic philosophers of Rome, especially to me very appealing. So in our human experience of life, we have this strong kind of primordial instinctual drives that take us maybe into lower realms of behavior, into just blind brutality or vengeance, into kind of demonic vibrations. We can sink to those levels. But also, I mean, even though that is the sensational side of our human state, the non-sensational side, but the side that seems to be most where we find the meaning of our life, the purpose of our life, and where our life then is say perfected, is in our love of the good, our longing, our aspiration for enlightenment, for liberation, for salvation, for understanding. And one sees this here in Britain, in the United States, in the USSR, in Thailand, in Sri Lanka, and India, wherever one happens to go, one will always find those people who just are just living their lives according to habit and conditioning, prejudice, who who are dead in themselves, who are unconscious and just going through the motions of the programming they've received so far. There's a good number of that, of just human beings who are not evolving in any way or devolving. They're just kind of stuck in being programmed to a certain level and not getting beyond it. Then there's always those criminal aspect of a society, those who somehow incline toward activities and that cause harm and destruction and degeneration. And then there are those that are actively involved in trying to understand life, trying to come to terms with it, who, when you talk about ethics and morality, whose eyes brighten rather than become clouded, who love the good and the beautiful and true, not because of vanity or of attachment, but because that is what we are most comfortable and most happy with being in being with. That's our perfection. We can't be perfect in form. The forms we have are subject to all kinds of influences. Our human state, isn't it? We have to put up with oftentimes diseases and ailments and physical disabilities, mental limitations, all kinds of social limitations and unfairnesses and injustices in the society and the world in general. Having to put up with the irritation and frustrations of our mates, our progeny, our relatives, with society in general, with prime ministers and presidents and dictators. But in spite of all that, in spite of the continuous irritation and frustration of this sensory experience, there's also the transcendent ability to transcend, to stand outside it, to know it for what it is, and to abide in that way of knowing, of realization, of being awake, aware, of being responsive to the flow of life. So this sense of sin and of suffering, this emphasis is not a kind of position to take fixed position, that we are sinners is kind of absolutely, that's the way it is, or that life is suffering. But sin and suffering can be equated to delusion of the mind, in which we identify with the divisive, separative functions of our minds, that always throw us into this state of feeling alienated, separated, far away from reality, where the perceptions of time dominate our experience of life, our age of our body, the time of the day or night, the season of the year. Everything's scheduled, programmed, and I don't know how many clocks I have these days. You know, with these digital clocks, and people give me. It used to be. Remember when I was early years of my monastic life, to have one clock was something rare. You treasured having just one, even not very good clock, because it was a real something that was hard to come by. Now I think all of it, we have clocks everywhere, and the digital clocks and these quartz clocks and all this perception of time is now flooding us with where I have one that I can even check my pulse. Press a little button and I know what my pulse is doing at this moment. Like that. Fascinating little gimmicks. Sense of time as reality. But yet time itself is a perception, and it's a cultural perception. This is like say the efficiency of say the Northern European mind, wanting, like here in Britain, we expect people when they make an appointment to come on time. And that's not too early, maybe 5 minutes before the hour, and certainly not, and be there on time. If you get there too early, then people are obliged to entertain you before you've made the appointment. So here in Britain, people are very considerate, and I appreciate that. It's not something that I mean to be criticizing, but it is a very strong cultural perception of time, because, say, in Thailand, their perception of time is slightly different. They don't have exactly the same attitude about time as the Brits. So that there can be irritations and frustrations just on the level of perception of time. It's Thai time or British time or whatever, and we can mean it as a kind of complaint. But when we investigate time, whether it's from whatever cultural angle it comes from, we begin to see it for what it is. It's fair enough, it's good enough to use as a social convention, but the power of deluding us has been relinquished. Time is no longer something that is dominating our experience of life. It's the realization of eternity, or of timelessness, or of deathlessness, or wholeness, or totality, or oneness, or emptiness, or no self, or desirelessness. And these are taking our language to the perceptual level where you can't perceive anything beyond it. Emptiness, selflessness, desirelessness, eternity, unconditioned. All this, the discriminative mind cannot kind of go beyond that. So that perception, where we take our ability to perceive toward that ultimate point of say emptiness or unconditioned or deathlessness, then the discriminative mind can be reflected, isn't it? We can see how much of our conscious experience of life is just reactions to this and that, and the color of this and the form of that, and opinion of this person, and news of the day and what the neighbors said yesterday and what so-and-so was doing, and gossip about the rock stars, the film stars, the politicians, what Mr. Major's doing, Mr. Bush is doing, and our life can be completely kind of obsessed with these little conditions and ideas and views about the people and places and things. But then all that dissolves, isn't it, into nothingness. When we just take the perception of Amaravati, or deathless realm, or emptiness, or anatta, no self. And then the discriminative mind, you can't discriminate there. There's nothing to compare unconditioned, the perception of unconditioned with. You can't, because no longer is the mind operating on the level of conditioned phenomena, on belief in conditioned phenomena. All conditions are impermanent. And so that means that the mind that is a realization of impermanence, that which can realize, that which can know things as they are. What is that? And that's not a condition of the mind, is it? It's not conditioned. You can't kind of see one condition by grasping another condition. One condition can't see another condition. It's by realizing through mindfulness, unconditioned mind, or the unconditioned, that you have that perspective on the conditions, on the sankharas, on the discriminative, variable, changing qualities of sensory experience. Now, isn't that a kind of wonderful thing? It's a kind of miracle in a way, that in such a highly volatile, sensitive, and erratic, and vulnerable form as a human body and human consciousness, that you actually can realize deathless reality. To me, that is the perfection. That is the meaning and purpose and what life is all about as a human being. Because then you're taking our humanity is no longer something that prevents or blocks, or we're no longer seeing it. We're not settling for anything less than that ultimate perfection. Not as a physical being, or as a man or woman, or any conditioned thing, but as being the vehicle, the means, the opportunity, the occasion for that ultimate realization, and that is what, say, the realization of nibbana or nirvana. These Buddhist terms mean that the realization, the direct insight, knowledge, understanding of ultimate reality. And ultimate reality is always related to conditions. We're not trying to perceive ultimate reality as unconditioned, as emptiness, as deathlessness, but in this particular human state, with the limitations of human consciousness and human experience, we always relate to the miracle of the condition arising and ceasing in the unconditioned. Something out of nothing. That's a miracle, isn't it? Spontaneous arising out of nothing. That's what we call miraculous. Rather than samsara, where one thing conditions another. It goes on and on in a cycle. And when we talk about samsara, the Buddhist term samsara, it's the endless cycles of habit, where one thing goes on to another, and it goes in a cycle. So you get angry with somebody makes you angry, and then you say something bad to them, then you feel guilty, and then you say, oh, I'm a bad person, I shouldn't be swearing and cursing and condemning somebody, I'm a horrible person, I won't do it again, and then you do it again, and then you think, I'm a terrible person. That's one thing going on to the next, and that's a cycle, that's a habit, isn't it? Just it goes on and on and on, and then you feel, oh, I'm a hopeless case. Humanity, we're just hopeless. Life is meaningless. We feel trapped and we feel despair because we're trapped in the cycle of habit, and the miracle of life has not been noticed, not been witnessed, not been realized. So then the miracle is in that realization. What arises ceases. And then the emptiness or the selflessness or the nibbana or nirodha or anatta or shunyata or viraga, these Pali terms, Buddhist terms, imply the human being fully conscious, aware, but no longer identified with conditioned experience. So even, say, the violent, exciting tendencies of masculinity are witnessed and resolved then and there, rather than indulged in or suppressed. Because being human is like this, isn't it? When we're witnessing to our human state, we're not trying to, we're recognizing all possibilities within the human framework that we find ourselves in. I used to feel terribly guilty with the fact that some of my thoughts were far from pure. Idealistically, I think a monk should have pure thoughts, and then the thoughts, sometimes the thoughts would not be very pure, and then you'd think, I'm impure, because the thoughts are not pure. Or is that real? That's the conditioned pattern, isn't it? That's me and mine. I am pure or I'm impure. I should be pure. I'm not pure enough. I must be more pure than this. A monk should be pure. And the whole idea of purity and self go around and around in a cycle. You get nowhere trying to become pure. Because you're just caught in the samsara, the cycle of your thoughts and views. So then purity isn't a matter of becoming, but of realization. So that impure thoughts then are seen as what arises ceases. One is seeing things as they are, and that in that ability to know things as